Nasheed Sabree is CEO and founder of Rower Consulting. Rower Consulting, founder and CEO of Rower Consulting, where he leads a talented team of experts specializing in data visualization, engineering, automation, and cloud optimization. Rower Consulting serves a diverse client base, including Fortune 500 companies such as Chick-fil-A, McKinsey, and Kaiser as well. Prior to founding Royer Consulting, Nasheed held senior leadership positions at Mars, ADP, and Focus Brands, where he honed his skills in data analytics and business strategy. He attended Howard University on a soccer scholarship and later transferred to Georgia State University, where he earned a BA in sociology and an MPA in management and finance. And overall, Nasheed's just a really nice guy and a great person to work with. So awesome. I'm glad that you're on. Nasheed, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Do I have the ability to share my screen?
You do. Let me just stop sharing.
Thank you, Sekou, for that amazing intro. Now I have to live up to it. That's awesome. All right, 1 second. Let me share my screen. Entire screen share. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so tonight we're going to spend a little bit of time, and I want to try to make it as fun as possible, talking about my perspective on Tableau, but we're going to look at it through the lens of what I call the art of the possible. So the title of tonight's talk is The Power of Asking Questions and Embracing Different Perspectives. So here's a high-level outline of what we're going to talk about tonight. Sekou has done a great job covering the who am I, so I won't spend a ton of time here, but I will do something to kind of help balance it out, to help people understand where you're at isn't always where you start, and where you're starting at doesn't define where you end up. So what I want to zero in on is the diversity of experiences. I know we talked about the diversity of the questions, the way in which we engage on our jobs, and obviously being a diverse group ourselves. That's a whole different topic that we'll touch on. But the diversity of experiences, the reason I have this here is not to outline anything or really zero in on anything specifically, but to say that there's been a common thread that's kind of guided my career from the beginning, even when I was studying sociology, all the way to where I am now. And that's really embracing discomfort, accepting learning opportunities, and being willing to ask questions. So very early on in my career, and I won't spend too much time here, one of my mentors said, assume intelligent design. And what he meant by that is if you're dealing with something that's difficult, assume that someone else has also faced a similar situation, and that there are more than likely, there are options to alleviate some of that burden. And taking that approach, I've always looked for opportunities to innovate from where I started, whether it was SEF, which is a Southern Education think tank, where they were using Excel and Map Info. I assumed there was a better way. I found Tableau, recommended it. They gave me access to the content management system. I learned a little bit of HTML, CSS. And so everywhere I've gone, I've been looking for those opportunities, asking the question. Sometimes many of us may be, not so inclined to ask questions, especially when we're in new industries where we don't have established expertise. But leaning in, asking some of those questions has really unlocked a lot of growth. Enough about me specifically, but I want to really highlight this particular thing. So early in my career, I was learning Tableau. I thought it was pretty good. I had an interview. I'm not going to say where, but when I went into the interview, I was very prepared. I had gotten my Tableau certification. I was prepared to answer questions. How do you, show the top 10 or do some parameterized the date calcs? I can do all of that. But what I was asked to do, I was not prepared to do. And the question was, here's a data set. What do you think? And I completely froze because in that moment, I hadn't thought about the process. I had been what I call an order taker. I was a technical expert. I could do what was asked, but I hadn't sat in the other seat to think about what are the right questions to ask and how do I actually go about answering these questions in a logical way. in a systematic way. So that has really grounded everything that I do. So I always tell people, yes, we can learn the technical execution of different tools, but if we don't learn how to think about how to apply those tools in new and exciting ways, then we might miss out on opportunities. So that helps shift my perspective, and that kind of shapes the way I want to kind of go through the conversation tonight. So why this topic? I've given you a little bit of that, but I do love this quote, which is what we see a lot of times in the space we're in, technology, data analytics, however you want to look at it. Most of the issues that we run into are not technical challenges, but a communication challenge. And I love the quote because it says, the biggest problem is that we have the illusion that it has taken place. So we talk to clients, we talk to stakeholders, and we assume that they understand us, we understand them. And then when we show them something, there's a lot of times there are missed opportunities. So that's just a fun quote. To the fun part of this. So we talked about the power of asking questions. I don't know how many of you all have seen these shows. That's not important, but these are popular shows on Netflix that focus in on questions. So we have Love is Blind. Some of you all, my wife has me watch. I watch them. So I admit that I watch them. So Love is Blind is about strangers who communicate between with a wall in between them. So it's really geared to asking the right questions to decide if you're going to propose to the person on the other side of the wall. On the right-hand side of this slide, we have Indian matchmaking, where there's someone who has a database, ironically enough, of various families, their children, and their characteristics that they think might be right for the other person. For all of us data lovers, we imagine that would be a great word where we can kind of look through a database and say, all right, what are the key characteristics? But I would argue that it starts with the right questions. And these shows kind of illustrate that point. And you see as the show goes on, those who ask the right questions have given themselves a better opportunity of success or for success. So in the spirit of that, before we jump into Tableau specific stuff, I wanted to have an opportunity for anyone who wants to, I think I'll participate as well, to interact, because I don't want to sit here for 10, 15 minutes, however long the conversation is, and just talk to you. I want to respect everyone's time, and I want to kind of make it engaging. So if you don't mind, I've never tried this, so let's see if it works, but I would love for you all to kind of ask questions that you think might be useful. And I'm trying this for the first time, so we'll see if it works. Oh, one person's okay, awesome. Now let's type. Who did you vote for? That's a great one. These are some great questions. I see people still typing, so this is awesome. Thank you all for participating. I know sometimes we get into these types of forums and we don't always, have the willingness to kind of ask these questions. Even sometimes in workspaces, when we're in meetings, I know there were plenty of times I showcased a little timeline where I was in situations where I didn't understand the lingo, I didn't understand any of the acronyms, and I would ask certain questions and I wasn't sure how they would be received. So I appreciate you all participating. And many times the questions that we have that may not be intuitive, that we lean on from our prior experiences can sometimes inform what the companies do, even if at the time it doesn't make sense. So I'll give you an example while a couple of other people are typing. When I was at Pulte Group, I had worked in education, healthcare, never in home building or real estate. And we would always try to sell a bunch of homes towards the end of the year in the fourth quarter. And we would have to discount, we would have to figure out ways to kind of move the inventory. And so I said, well, why don't we just start a program to rent to own, where we can actually allow those people who may want to have a home but aren't in the position to buy yet, but they have good credit, they have whatever it is that you want to kind of specify, allow them to occupy these homes so that we can actually sell them for what we want to sell them for versus trying to discount them and sell them. Initially, the thought from the group was, that's not what we do. That doesn't make sense. We're going to sell homes. That's what we do. And it was probably like a year or so ago, I heard that they're actually considering a program like that. So I kind of laugh, and I see other like VCs backing those types of endeavors where it's like, okay, we'll buy homes, we'll build homes, and we'll actually sell them to people through a rent to own type of agreement. So it's those types of scenarios where you just never know. So I'll jump to the next one. Thank you so much. These are, I think, great questions. I wish in the show Love is Blind they would ask some of these, or maybe they do and they don't have them on camera, but that's another point. So now we're going to take what we've learned there and we're going to apply it to a scenario that I actually have some visualizations in Tableau, and this is going to kind of be the foundation for the talk tonight. So what I want to have us do is look at the data. So we have McDonald's nutrition data, and we have the category, we have items, and we have serving size, and then we have calories, total fat you all can read, and then we have percent daily value, right? So I want you all, this is all we have. I want to understand from you all, what questions should we explore based on this data? Sometimes we think about what cool things we're going to build, but I always say that coming up with the questions that we should explore based on the data is probably one of the most challenging things for data professionals, because there's an infinite number of ways in many cases that you could go. So let's see if we can zero in on what we want to explore. And I'm not saying that we will explore it this evening, because we won't. I'm just going to show you all what we have done, what I actually did, and then how having conversations with people with various experiences, how they kind of shape what the final output was. And I think you all would appreciate that. And so this one I won't participate in because I have already kind of done some work with the data, but I want to see just how the people in the call think about data. And if I need to go back, if you all need to see anything, then we can go back to the prior slide as well. So while you all are doing that,
back.
you said go back. So here's the data. You have category, you have all of the items. If you're familiar with McDonald's, the menu, then it's everything that's in the menu with the serving size, etc. How many calories, the total fat, all of these things are, I guess you could say, characteristics that we can explore. And one thing that I have seen that is beneficial is when you're going through these exercises, sometimes things that you've built in the past, things that you've seen done in different industries can inform what you do with data here. So when I first saw the data set, to be honest, I didn't think there was much to be done. But I sat and I thought and I thought and I thought, and I came up with some cool ideas. Oops, here we go. So we have, what decision do you need to make from this information? And that's a natural question. One thing that I have seen is sometimes the business doesn't know what they want or what decisions they can make from the information. I like these. So we have thresholds of daily value, trends, thresholds. These are awesome. I'll give it another few seconds and then I'll jump ahead. And so I think this exercise is always a good one because many times the business doesn't know what it doesn't know. As data professionals, we live in the data. We actually probably see things that our leadership may not even be aware of. We might see opportunities to link data sources. We see insights. We sometimes have to take a chance on saying, hey, here's how we could do it. Here's what I actually would like to explore, and then see if there's an opportunity to kind of explore those viewpoints. So I think I'm seeing some of the questions that are actually going to align very well with what we're going to see on the next slides. Perfect. Thank you all again for participation. So here is the design. And there's a host of problems with the design, but I think what I want to show you all is what I designed, what I built, why I built it, and then we can talk about how it was improved. So, and I'll actually show you all the live visual. Here we go. So it's on my Tableau Public. What I decided to do was to actually build out a menu optimization dashboard. And I was focused primarily on functionality. So I wanted to have the categories broken down similar to how you would order at McDonald's. You would come to the drive-through, say, hey, I would like to order an entree. They would ask if you want a side or some dessert or if you want a drink. So I broke it down into 3 buckets. Now, all of us who are in Tableau can appreciate the level of difficulty, I think, in terms of trying to get all of this to work. And it required quite a bit of work when it comes to setting up the data, context filters, dashboard actions, all of the cool stuff. But I was happily able to actually get it working. So essentially what it is, and I want to clear it out. Did I lose you all? No. Let me see. So this is what the view would look like when it starts. And we're basically going to look at the data for a little bit. So whoever said thresholds, that's how I looked at it. I wanted to see if there's any one item that would actually put you over the threshold for carbs, cholesterol, sodium, and total fat, your 100% of your daily value for those 4 particular metrics. And there were 5 that would immediately put you over that threshold of a couple of them in some cases, but one of any of those would put you over. So what I wanted to do is show how many options do I have left, and then to zero in on however many options I have for the next category and the next category as I kind of selected. So because I selected the steak and egg McMuffin, which used to be one of my go-tos when I used to eat McDonald's, now I can only select, of the 20 options, I can only select 2, apple slices or side salad. And so these titles, for all of us Tableau folks, are updating based upon the calculation that's then filtering the number of items based on the selection. And then we do the same thing for the drink. So 17 out of the 132 we can actually have, and it shows you what that looks like. So I was very excited about developing this. And when I showed it to one of my senior consultants, he was like, I love the functionality. But he asked me a series of questions, and I'm going to jump into those questions next. But I was like, but guess what? You can actually set it to like 33% if you want to do 3 meals. He was like, oh, that's great. But we're going to jump into the questions. So all of these things, the custom images should not be this hard. I literally spent, I mean, you all can imagine, trying to eyeball it in the shapes, a little window to see which one's the 40 piece or whatever. I'm making that up, but trying to make it make sense when you actually see it on screen. So that took more time than it should. I think this is an opportunity, especially with extensions and a whole host of other options. But the UI UX is missing some critical design elements. I'm a big advocate for human-centered design. I was fortunate enough to do another Tableau talk here in Atlanta where I talked about the evolution of Tableau. I think that's coming. I think it's happening. I think we're seeing it. But I will say UI UX will become very important. And I'll say a couple other things about that as we go. But essentially, I needed to redesign what I created. And so here, this was the feedback from one of my senior consultants who has a diverse background, building not only mobile software, but hardware as well. And this is what he said. I'm going to read it to you all. But essentially, it's saying that based on what he's seeing, we need to actually redesign this particular application, which is what I was calling it. So here's the strategy that I would want to share with you all. If it's helpful, great, take from it whatever you will. But essentially, the idea, and some of these questions I saw, is who is the target audience? Who is the target customer? Who's going to utilize what it is you build? This is probably the most important question before we start building and dragging and dropping and creating calculated fields and all of the great stuff we love to do. Let's understand who the target audience is. I'm not target audience, target user, because we don't want people to just look at it. We want to actually engage and engage repeatedly. Maybe we need to start changing the language because we have an audience for a little bit, but we want to have active users. So who is going to actually use what we build? Where will they use it? Will they use it in the car? Will they use it out in the field? Will they use it sitting in the office? And then how will they interact with it? Are they going to operate on their tablet? Are they part of the sales team? Are they going to operate, in an office setting? When will they use it? That's going to identify what they're looking for when they actually come to what it is you design. And that's going to inform your features and how you actually design interactivity, the flow, et cetera. What are they trying to accomplish by using it? That's very important. And if we're not able to answer some of these questions, it can actually drive, adoption if we do answer them, and it can actually doom your application, your dashboard, et cetera, if we don't. And the final question is, why is the user most likely using it? That's more of a business question, and that's probably a little outside of the realm of UI UX, but it is good to kind of have that understanding. So now specifically for the McDonald's menu app that I showed you all that I was so excited about. When I had a conversation with one of my consultants, he was saying UI UX is based on assumptions. So let's talk about the assumptions that we should make or could make. Assumptions could be correct or incorrect. That's why we kind of went through the process of asking questions, just putting them out there. But we're going to make a few assumptions. And this is what he came back with. He said, okay, who is the target user of the app? The target user is the consumer, the customer. He said, where will the user most likely interact? At McDonald's. And he said, okay, well, if that's the case, if they're at McDonald's and you have that landscape or like view, that's not going to work because they're going to likely be on their phone. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of hard to design an app where you're scrolling horizontally and navigating left to right for someone to use on their phone. When will they use it? So they're going to be in line or in the car, et cetera. So what are they looking to do? They're seeking to understand what options are available to them, and they're seeking to select those that will keep them within a certain threshold or range, or et cetera. The why we're not going to go into, but that's more so under business strategy. So if someone designs an app for this, which would I think be great, especially for those who are counting calories and tracking carbs or looking at whatever formula they have, or if you want to get a lot of protein and eat a bunch of double cheeseburgers, you can. If you're working, there are so many strategies, keto diet, etc. But why would someone actually use this app is something that's going to fall more so under business strategy, which can drive your rollout, your go-to-market strategy, etc. So let's look at what was designed based upon these. So here's the redesign. And it's redesigned specifically for mobile. And you can read some of the bullet points there. And this is like my conclusion, to be honest. So let me actually go here. So it's the same design in theory, but it's actually something that you can use, and it can be refined. And there are so many cool features that I'm sure many of you all are aware of that will allow us to actually do more with this design. But this is no longer a design about dashboards per se. This is more so using data to design a tool that gives you information. So I always tell people dashboards are great. Dashboards give you, what you're looking for when they're well designed. However, when we use our phones and we constantly are engaged, there are data points that we're looking at that are drawing us back repeatedly. So the design of dashboards will evolve eventually to give people a similar experience where it makes you want to keep coming back, is engaging, is intuitive, and those types of things I think lend themselves more for what we call modular design, or simply put, analytic application. So this is an example of one that operates in the same way as what I showed before, but it's designed based on the questions that we ask. And as we conclude, hopefully I'm doing good on time. I mentioned the future of Tableau. This is my prediction. Is going to be one centered on designing dashboards as platforms, not dashboards as independent entities, but dashboards as a component of a design that's designed to feed into a larger system. And they're going to be adaptable. You can look at them and they're going to be responsive. That's all adaptability means. I don't need to be long-winded. So what I propose is that the goal will be usability, which is essentially getting people to ask the right questions so that what you design is used and used repeatedly. Positioning means that when we're designing, one of the opportunities that I see within the Tableau ecosystem when it was data to everyone, democratizing data, self-service analytics, is there still is an opportunity to establish best practices, guardrails, if you will, so we avoid some of the frustration that I've seen within organizations where they don't have some of us data experts, Tableau experts on the team guiding their development. You see a lot of missed opportunity. You see a lot of struggling, implementations where there are opportunities to come in and establish the proper positioning of the tool and guide the organization to utilizing the tool more effectively versus people, failing to put the context filter on and wondering why the data is not right, or people doing blends and all kinds. You see some things that really shouldn't surprise us, but they're there. And then expansion. I mentioned the idea of Tableau linking with software engineering best practices where you're actually building out embedded portals, but you're also leveraging the best of what's available on the web, AI, et cetera, and building out what we call analytic applications or an entire platform that leverages Tableau, yes, but also whether you want to use JavaScript or Python, whatever it is, you can build it. And a lot of the tools I think are moving that direction. And that's it for me. I want to thank you all for taking the time to kind of listen. I hope the presentation was beneficial, engaging, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I got a question on she.
Yes, go ahead.
What do you think is one of the biggest challenges with integrating Tableau into like a broader scale when it comes to JavaScript or embedded analytics?
It's a good question. I haven't actually explored it too much. So I think the biggest challenge from my perspective is getting those who are in software engineering to actually communicate with us who are in data. So I always say, because I have a lot of friends who are like expert full stack developers, and I feel like we're running running down parallel paths, but we're not intersecting. And I think that's the biggest challenge. Like I talk to them, they're like, "Oh, you're doing cool things," and they're doing cool things, but we never talk to each other. Most of the people that I meet in this space aren't experts when it comes to JavaScript, so they don't leverage the JavaScript API. I don't. And there's like Python, API. I don't. All these things you can do, but I haven't really seen anybody explore it. So I think that's probably the biggest way I'll be along with it. I think that's the biggest barrier.
I have a quick question just for um, consultants, developers in general, especially early on in your career. I think when I was learning, I focused a lot on technical things and how to do things technically in Tableau versus thinking about storytelling, asking the right questions, colors, like things that make you can do a lot of technically deep things in Tableau when oftentimes something very simple and clear is really what you need. So if you were, let's say, hiring people, entry level people, how do you get people to uh, display, their technical skills, but also be able to parse out their ability to ask the right questions?
That's a great question. I think for me, what we do is we have a case study that's designed intentionally to have certain gray areas where you either have like great intuition to kind of understand, okay, I've been in this space, I understand what's not being said. And I always give the interviewee the opportunity to actually ask the questions. I say, you have 24 hours to actually do the case study. If you have any questions at any time, don't hesitate to ask. If you don't ask, then you don't get it right, then that shows me something. If you do ask and your questions are on point based upon what I've intentionally left out, that also indicates something to me. And then you have to go about actually doing the technical piece where there's going to be some outliers. There's going to be some intentional things that are buried in that case study that require you to actually use your technical ability. So it's with and fortunately, everybody who I've hired based upon that practice has shown and proven that they're either going to ask the right questions or they're going to be, they're going to be empowered, not enabled, empowered to go about actually using their best judgment, and they're going to do what they do because they're professional. So that's one area where I've seen tremendous value.
I think that's what I learned fairly quickly, coming from I guess an academic evaluation background into this. Uh, Being able to communicate and ask the right questions early on to the right people at the right time saves you so much
Yes, it does.
time on the back end. I remember one of my first projects, I built something that I thought was beautiful. However, I built it to the wrong person's specification and not to the actual users for the dashboard. Uh, and also, the way the data model was set up really wasn't conducive to what they really wanted. So I learned fairly quickly that asking the right questions up front is probably like 70% of the battle.
It is.
The technical part you can Google.
Exactly. I've seen too many people do it, and they're keeping the dashboard in beta, as I call it. And it's like by the time they reveal it to the business is like, "What is this?" And it's like, "Oh, I thought I was doing this," and it's like, "But you didn't ask anybody. You didn't quickly build something and get feedback. You just went down a path."